What is going on, guys? Noah Brewer here, back again with an absolute slapper of a video, and today we're going to be talking about the time I scaled a store to $400,000 in revenue, over 6 figures in profit in just 30 days, and I'm going to be going in depth on all of the things that I think are very important that it taught me, all the lessons that I learned, and all the lessons that I took away from it that I was able to implement on future stores and scale more and more stores to 7 figures as time went on. Now, we're going to be going over a few really big lessons and a few big takeaways that you're going to be able to implement in your business today. And at the end, I'm also going to be going over all the smaller lessons and things that we don't have to go so in depth on, but I will be talking about things in this video that literally nobody else has talked about before, and they're going to be complete unique perspectives from, specific situations and opinions and experiences that I had from this particular situation. So I'm super excited to share it with you and tell you guys my story about this particular store. So let's get right into it. Now, before we get into the actual lessons and specific things that I learned from this store, I want to do an overview of the store and the product just so that you can have some context of what the product was, how much revenue we did, how much profit was there, whatever. So we'll get into this really quick, then we'll get straight into the lesson. So I'll pull the slide up on the screen so that you can read it with me. You can see on the screenshot the total was $400,000 in sales, 2,358 orders. So from the beginning of November to the beginning of December, we scaled to 400K, and you can see that before then the product was a winner and it was doing anywhere between $300 and $1,000 a day. Nothing crazy, and the majority of our scaling happened in this 30-day window. The estimated net profit of this store at this time was about $150,000, and I based this off of our average cost per purchase and the average margin of the store, which the average ROAS was actually like 10 to 20 in the very beginning, so that's why the margin is so freaking high. The margin of the product was really good, and we had explosive sales. Like, people were buying this thing left and right, and our cost per purchase was insanely low, like $5 to $10 when we first started scaling. So we were selling the product for $140, and the product itself, drum roll please, hunting camera. I'll pop a picture of it up on the screen here so that you can see what it looks like, or you can just hop in Google and see what it does. We'll get into in this video why I believe this product was so good and why it was able to scale to such high numbers so very fast. And I also do want to mention that this is only the first 30 days that we scaled this product. In the prior month or two after this, the product did another $1 million in sales. So this was actually a 7-figure, potentially a multi-7-figure scale. And the total numbers by the end of it, I believe, was about $1.4 million in sales, and the net profit on that was about $400,000. So we are just going to be talking about the lessons that I learned in the first 30 days of scaling it, because after that, we pretty much just transitioned into the maintenance phase, and most of it from that point wasn't really, much of a scale. It was more just kind of maintaining like the 30K a day point, which there's a lot of lessons in there as well, but I have other videos where I went very in depth on the maintenance phase and how to maintain an actual store at that level. So for now, we're going to be talking about that direct scale. You can see the hockey stick, explosion up to $30,000 a day in sales, and that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. So now that you know the numbers and you know the product, let's get into the first lesson. So probably the first thing I want to point out and the first thing I want to talk about is the power of the Pioneer method. Now, if you're new to this channel, I'll get into what the Pioneer method is, and if you're not new here, then you're already familiar with what it is, but I would still listen to what I have to say. Essentially, the Pioneer method is finding products that nobody else is really selling. So you're basically looking for completely untapped new products that you can bring to a certain platform, whether it's Facebook or TikTok, and essentially be the first one to test it and the first one to scale it if it works. Now, obviously, there's always going to be people that have ideas before you, so very rarely are you actually the first person, but as long as you're within the first like 10 or so and it's not super duper saturated, I would still consider it a Pioneer product. Now, the reason the Pioneer method is so powerful, which you're going to be seeing repeated in this video many times, is because when you're the first person to, essentially test or scale a product, it creates an insane amount of impulse around that product. And usually when you have insane amounts of impulse around your product, it usually means that you're going to have an explosion of sales, and the majority of people who see your ad are going to actually go through your funnel and click purchase. You can't get a 10 plus ROAS when 60% of your audience has already seen the product or already seen the ads that you're running a million times. And that's the reason I'm making this point, is a lot of people talk about impulse and drop shipping like it's something that's a given, right? Like the reason people buy is out of impulse. And I wholeheartedly disagree with this. I think impulse is something that you have to create create with your product and with your marketing in order for it to actually work in the way that it's supposed to. Meaning, not every single product out there is going to have impulse, or at least you're not going to receive the benefits of impulse. Real impulse in e-commerce is people see the product and they instantly buy it. This is where you see really high conversion rates. This is where you see really low CPMs, really high click-through rates. You see just this insane amount of growth and insane amount of people, jumping towards your product and just being super jumpy to actually buy it. And while most people think that this is just a natural occurrence, I think it's something that actually has to be created and thought out, and I think it's caused by a few different things. Number one, if your product is brand new and nobody's seen it before, it solves a really big problem and it's not super saturated, or if it's super unique, it can definitely create impulse. The next one, which we're gonna go a little bit more in depth on, is a price and perceived value that is almost unbelievable. Meaning that if your product is new, they've never seen it before, and then they go to your website and your price is at a price point that is undeniably a good deal, or if it's super easy to justify any of those things, then your chances of creating impulse actually go up. And the final thing that I think a product needs to create real impulse and actually get that, jumpiness from your customers is an ad that effectively communicates the value proposition and the purpose of the product. So you need those three things to create real impulse. You need a product that is new or unique enough that creates, excitement and a lot of jumpy personality traits when somebody sees it, right? Like, oh shit, I need that. Or, oh, I can't go another hour without buying this, or I need to buy this right now. You need a price or an offer that is literally unbelievable and just makes them, jump on it out of impulse when they see it. And you also need an ad that effectively communicates the purpose and the value proposition of the product. And when you have those three things, that's when I believe the real effects of impulse come into play. So whenever you're doing your product research, keep these things in mind. And if you want to create real impulse, you almost have to follow the pioneer method, and you have to have a really good price point, and you have to have a good ad that effectively communicates it. So the second thing that I really want to talk about in this video, which is one of the big lessons that I took away from scaling the store, is the power of perceived value. I think this is one of the most slept on things when it comes to product research, and it's something that a lot of people in dropshipping don't really talk about a whole lot. This particular product, the hunting camera, could only be found at big box stores for $250 to $500 at the time when we were launching it. So yes, if you go to Google and you type in hunting camera right now, you're gonna see a bunch of them for $100, $150, $200, whatever. But at the time, you couldn't find one for less than $250. I mean, it was very impossible to find a good price tag on one of these things. It was 100%, a luxury novelty product for hunters that only a few people bought that were super duper passionate and super addicted to hunting. Obviously, the product had insanely high perceived value. Like we talked about earlier, we sold it for $140. So in a market where the cheapest one is $250, to be able to come in and sell one for $140 was literally like an unbelievable price point. It was a no-brainer offer, whatever you want to call it. It definitely created the impulse of being the pioneer product with the perceived value and with the insane, unbelievable offer. Now, of course, the purpose of the product itself and the actual problem that it solved was also really massive. It was very, very helpful to hunters, even though it was a really expensive tool. Almost every single hunter knew about it and knew that they wanted one at some point. Obviously, with the very high price tag, most hunters didn't have one, but we made it at a price point where all hunters could have one, and it makes sense to do it. So essentially, it was a hunting camera that you would put on a trail or in the woods that would essentially alert you if there's any deers nearby. Obviously, very valuable to a hunter who sits around all day waiting for deers, whatever hunters do. Honestly, I don't know that much about hunting, but I do know that when you're sitting around all day waiting for deer, being able to, spot them in the distance or spot them in an area that you're not watching constantly is definitely valuable, saves you time, saves you a lot of headache, and again, it basically gives you two pairs of eyeballs, or if you're a crazy hunter, you could have 5 of them, and we did have people ordering 5 of them at a time because they would put them at different points of their trails and their woods, and they would know where which one is, so when they saw a deer, they can, go to that area. But essentially, my student was able to source this product for $70, which at the time was absolutely insane. He basically caught a diamond in the rough product, scrolling through AliExpress, and I remember it had like 0 orders. He was telling me about when he first found it. And like I said, even if you Googled the product or went on AliExpress and searched it, like you could not find these things for less than $200. Like the cheapest one, most terrible option was $200. So still very expensive for what it was, and the price point that he was able to source it for was just unbelievably low. So we were able to double what it costed us and still be the cheapest on the entire market. It was an absolute no-brainer offer, and I feel like a lot of products that most dropshippers test, myself included, are not no-brainer offers. And that's one of the reasons that most products don't scale to 7 figures. They never had that potential to begin with, is because the price point that you're selling your products at is simply too high when you compare it to the perceived value of the problem it solves and the other competitors out there in the market. Like I said, you don't need to test products that only have, this very unique situation of perceived value, because there aren't many situations out there where your product is going to have this type of situation. This is a very unique situation. However, keeping in mind that when you're pricing your products, the value of the problem that you're solving and the competition of other products that solve that problem matters a lot. For example, if you're selling a product for $50 that solves X problem, but the person can go to their local, Walmart and get another product for $10 that solves the same problem, it's going to be a hard sell to get them to spend $50 with you when they can get essentially the same thing for $10 locally. Now, I hope this video has been incredibly valuable for you so far. I do want to say I have a ton of experience scaling stores, and just recently I've been working on a new scaling strategy that has allowed me to take multiple people this year from $1,000 a day to $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a day in sales, and I am looking to implement it with more people. So if you've been following my strategies, have a winning product, and you're doing like $200 to $300 a day or $1,000 a day, and you want me to jump in there and take it to the next level, then head over to my Instagram. I'll put my username on the screen and there will be a link in the description. Send me a message with your results, send me the sales, your margin, and where you're advertising on, whether it's Facebook or TikTok, and I would love to go in there and see if I can help you scale it. I do profit share only agreements where I can essentially help you scale the store and you only pay me if I'm able to take it to the next level. So if you have a store doing anywhere from $200 to $1,000 a day and you want to take it to the next level, send me a DM. Let's get back into the video. Now, let's talk about the actual ad strategy that we use to scale and what's really, really important about it. Number one, replicability and scalability of your ad strategy matters. Now, we will talk about the specifics of what we did and how we scaled so fast, but I need you to understand the power of being replicable and the power of being scalable. Two different things. Being replicable is basically the ability to identify what worked and then do it again and have it work again. This is very, very important when scaling your paid advertising, because you need to be able to find out what works so that you can do it again. And if you can do it twice, you can do it 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and you can keep doing it over and over and over again and have those results compound, bringing you to a higher level, which essentially is what scaling is, right? It's literally called scaling, just getting to the next level. The next thing that's massively important is the actual scalability of the strategy you're following. There are strategies out there where you get to 10K a day and it's like, what next? How do I get to the next level from here? I know a lot of people have messaged me being like, hey, I keep getting to $5,000 a day in sales and I can't get to the next level, or this and that. And usually I look at their scaling strategy and the first thing I notice is like, how are you supposed to get past 5K a day if you can't use any budgets over $500 a day, right? So usually the strategy that they're using just isn't scalable enough, and you have to actually make sure that the strategy you're using, you can actually get to a level where you can scale to 20, 30K a day. So the general strategy that we used was essentially step number 1, start a campaign. Doesn't matter what it is. Obviously, when you're starting out, it's going to be, interest or broad targeting or whatever. And then once you have a campaign that's working, you turn off the bad ad sets and you start making 1 new ad set per day inside of that campaign. Basically just to keep the fire going, just to keep on, adding things to it, taking things away, basically maintaining the profitability of that campaign. And then step number 3 was looking at the winning ad sets and scaling the budgets by 20% every other day. So this essentially allowed us to analyze our ads every other day and handpick out the ad sets that were performing really well and increase the budgets by 20%. This compounds over time because it's based on a percentage, so our scalability factor was very, very high. Like, we had single ad sets with budgets of over $1,000 after just a few weeks of implementing this method, and we had single ad sets that have spent 6 figures, 150K with like a 5 or 6 ROAS on a single ad set with a single interest, just because this strategy allowed us to scale the budgets of single ad sets. And then step number 4, which is the replicability, all we had to do was just keep on creating new campaigns campaigns, turn off the bad ad sets and start creating one new ad set per day, scale the budgets, and then repeat. Create a new campaign, whether it's, new creative, new audiences, lookalikes, retargeting. There were many different new campaigns that we could have created, and there was an endless way for us to scale those. So that's literally how simple it was to scale this store to 30K a day. We just started a campaign, scaled the ad sets inside of it, and then we repeated that process amongst many different campaigns, and voila, 30K a day. I will say at this point in time, I was not the biggest fan of increasing budgets in this fashion, and I would still say to this day that very rarely does it work. We did test it out initially in this ad account just to see what would happen, and it ended up working incredibly well. So sticking to the foundations, we just did more of what worked. Screw the rules, we saw what worked and we replicated it in a way that was endlessly scalable, and we made it happen. And that's why this store scaled to over $1 million in sales in less than 30 days, because we were able to pick out a replicable strategy that was endlessly scalable and just do it, right? Like we identified something that worked and we just repeated it over and over again until we got to 30K a day, and then we just maintained that, for the next month or two. Now, this particular store was actually the second life-changing product that I've been able to scale. The first one was the ceiling lights. I just made a video about them. If you go to my channel, you can watch that, where I talk about all the lessons I learned from that. However, this was the second product where I really saw it pop off, right? Like 10 plus ROAS, just like insanely scalable, insane levels of impulse, just like everything that you could want out of a winning product. And I kind of coined a name, unicorn product, which is essentially a product that sells effortlessly and scales to a massive level. And once I did this, I started realizing that, there are different levels to winning products. You have, your base level, or I guess you have products that'll literally make like 1,000 or 2 and then they die out. And then you have products that'll do like 50K. Then you have like multi 6-figure products. Then you have like 7-figure products. And then you have unicorns, right? Like unicorns are just beautiful. Everything goes perfectly. They sell incredibly well. The margins are great. There's so many different characteristics. So I put together a list of things that all unicorn products have in common. So a unicorn product is something that is completely life-changing, and by this point in my life, I would say that I have scaled about 5 of them. Every single one absolutely rocketing past 7 figures. I've scaled multiple stores to multi 7 figures. One of them we did 2.2 million in 6 months, and another one we did 3.7 million in just around 3 to 4 month time frame. These are absolutely kings of products. Now, there are characteristics that you can take away and, almost increase your chances of being able to find a unicorn product. I don't believe that you can guarantee a unicorn product for everything that you test, because honestly, the stars kind of have to align a little bit, but I think knowing these things is definitely something that's valuable when you're actually doing your product research, and I think sticking to them is a little bit limiting, but obviously keeping them in mind will definitely help you increase your chances of finding one of these life-changing, winning products. Now, out of the 5 unicorn products that I've actually scaled to 7 figures or higher, they all have these things in common. Number 1, the product is always new and it's always untapped. It's something that you could never guess, even if you tried. Even if you went to the top e-commerce guys in the world and you were like, hey, guess what this product is? They would never be able to guess, because usually it's some random product in a niche. It's got all the other characteristic traits, but it's usually something that you don't expect. And the reason is because not many people have done them before. Number 2, the product and the marketing, right? Both of those are 2 separate things. The product needs to be really good, and the marketing have to create insane levels of impulse. Remember, back in the beginning of this video, we talked about how to actually create impulse. All these products have those features with the perceived value, with the great ads, all those things that we talked about earlier. Number 3, this one's very important, and I've actually came across many unicorn products that didn't meet this criteria and ended up not scaling very high at all just because it didn't meet this criteria, and it is product must not stretch or break any advertising policies, and the product must actually work. Of course, this one is very, very important because there have been plenty of times where I test a product and it just pops off, 20 plus ROAS day 1, and it's just like absolutely unbelievable, the results that we see. And then day 3, day 4 comes along, and what do you know? The ads are disapproved. Or what do you know? We're getting complaints from customers, or we do a little bit of research on the product and it turns out it doesn't actually work the way that we're saying it works. So this is one of the criterias, and every single unicorn product that I've scaled past 7 figures has met these criterias. They followed all the advertising policies and they actually worked as we advertised them. Super duper important, and I have had some false alarms for unicorn products where they just do retardedly good for the first 2 weeks and then after that end up dying out because it didn't meet this piece of criteria. One other thing thing to note is that every single one of these unicorn products that I've scaled to 7 figures and above was usually found in about Q3, which is like right now, like I think today is day 3 of Q3 of 2022. So if you're watching this video, now is your time, baby. All the winners were found in Q3 of whatever year, right? Like 2018, 2019. I've had pretty much one unicorn product every single year, you know, like around 4 or 5 ever since I started in e-commerce, and every single one is found around this time. Could be a coincidence, could definitely be a coincidence, but maybe not, maybe it is, whatever. I think part of the reason we were able to scale so high is because if you find a winner in Q3, it sets you up perfectly to be able to scale the absolute piss out of it, you know, come Black Friday, Cyber Monday, when everybody's spending money online shopping, you know, buying gifts for Christmas and all these different holidays, you know, Thanksgiving. Also, most people's birthdays are in Q3 and Q4. So it could be a coincidence, but I don't really think it is, because I think the biggest winning products are 100% found in Q3 and then scaled the absolute piss out of during Q4. So these are the 4 things that all unicorn products have in common. Like I said, I don't think it's good to completely limit yourself to only test products that meet these criterias. However, I think it's really good to know, and I think that you should keep these 4 things in your mind when you're doing your product research. Now, before I end this video, I want to go over some smaller lessons that I learned, some littler things that I think are really, really good to know. So I'm just going to kind of shoot them at you so that you can digest them and take them in whatever way you can, and I bet one of these advice will actually resonate with you and help you get to the next point in your business. So the first thing I learned is that it's very okay to scale fast as long as you have the balls and the structure to back it up. Obviously, scaling from 0 to $1 million in sales in 60 days is fast as shit, and there's a million things that can go wrong, and there are things that did go wrong. However, this particular student had the balls and had the willpower to get through it all and fix the problems as soon as they came up. I remember how hard he was working to maintain all of it, and a lot of people talk about, you know, scaling too fast being one of the biggest issues in e-commerce. However, this guy pulled it off and it ended up working out really, really well. So it is okay to scale fast. You just have to be on top of your shit. The next quick lesson is not really a lesson. It's something that honestly I continue to learn to this day. It's that retargeting is still the #1 way to make free money once you have a winning product. Never changes, never will change. Once you find a winner, start retargeting. It's basically free money. The next one, back-end marketing is very important, and it's a great way to make extra money. However, it's not necessary to scale, and it shouldn't be necessary to scale. A lot of people talk about email marketing, SMS, upsells, increasing your AOV. We didn't do any of that shit with this store. I mean, maybe minor email marketing, SMS, of course, like all like the ground level, most basic setups that you could possibly have, and we still scaled with incredible profits. So that's just one of the lessons that I think is worthy of taking away, is that you don't need those things to be able to scale to high numbers. I do think it's 100% smart to get those things set up to actually maximize what you're doing though. The next one, when you have a unicorn product, the time is now. Like, there's no waiting around, you know, let's see how it performs over another week. Like, no, if you're getting a 20 ROAS, you need to jump on that shit and you need to scale the piss out of it, because it does not last. And if you're given the opportunity, you need to take it. And there have been a few opportunities after this point where I was actually able to think back in time, like, okay, this is a unique situation. I need to really, really work hard and capitalize on this and take advantage of it while I have it. Just a lesson that I thought was worthy of putting in here. The next one, DMCA is a real risk and a real problem once you get to these levels of scaling, you know, 20, 30, 40K a day. DMCAs are a real problem because companies can actually sue you for using their content or images or anything like that, and it is 100% worth it to get a lawyer to make sure that you're not violating any DMCA laws with your ads or your website or any of these things. We did run into some minor issues that basically caused us to have to redo our entire advertising and images on the site. It was just a big nightmare, and I recommend if you're doing 10K a day or higher, you know, get a lawyer to just kind of review everything that you have, and maybe even just have them on your team so that if you run into any issues, you have the lawyer to kind of back you up in any situation where you may need him. The next one is kind of funny. You can disrupt literally any industry as a teenager with a laptop. And obviously, if you're not a teenager, you can do it at any age. I just thought it was funny to say it in that way. Very, very shortly after we scaled this product, all the big box retail stores had these hunting cameras available for the same price, if not cheaper. You know, fit $100, $150 in that price range. Everybody just drastically lowered their price because the bar was basically reset for this whole category of products. Like I said, before we started scaling, the cheapest you could find a hunting camera was $200, $250, and there were ones for $500, $600. But after scaling, I literally went to my local Walmart and they had like 8 of them for like 80 bucks, 100 bucks, 120 bucks. Within 6 months of scaling, these things were readily available, cheaper than we were selling it for. And essentially the lesson to take away from this is, like, if you do find one of these scenarios where you're the cheapest on the market, you're not going to be the cheapest on the market forever, and there will be big box retailers that will just price you out. So honestly, price is not the best way to find a winning product, and it's not the best way to maintain one, because literally, like, so fast everybody dropped their prices. AliExpress just flooded the market with cheap hunting cameras, I guess. I'm not really sure what happened, but it was really, really funny seeing the hunting camera industry go crazy with pricing, just dropping their prices drastically over time. And the last smaller lesson that I think is really worth implementing, and I think it's a great one to end this video off with, is rules are rules because of people's limitations and because of what people have seen, not because that's how the universe works. What I mean is, we broke a lot of rules with this store and got away with it, and it actually ended up working out fine. We scaled way too fast. We didn't really test any new ads. Like, the ad that we started with when we initially tested the product is pretty much the ad that we ran with the whole time, minus a few different ads that we ran with retargeting, Black Friday sales, whatnot. We really scaled this whole store with one ad, which is something a lot of people say not to do. However, we did it anyways. We scaled single interest ad sets to 6 figures in ad spend, which goes against all the rules of like saturation and, people saying that their ad sets are dying out or their campaigns are dying out, ad fatigue, all these different rules that you hear in this industry. We just completely debunked it just by scaling a single ad set in a crazy way. A lot of people say that ROAS dips when you scale past 10K a day or 20K a day. We were still doing 30K a day with a 10 plus ROAS. So again, broke another status quo, broke another rule. Another one was we didn't really do back-end marketing all that great. Like, there was a basic abandoned cart sequence or SMS sequence set up, but we were still stupidly profitable without those incredible, back-end sequences, which I do think 100% smart to do so before you start scaling. However, in this specific scenario, we didn't, and we still made a fuckload of money. So rules are rules because of people's limitations and what they see. Don't 100% believe them, and when you get to the point to question the status quo and do things your way, don't be so scared to do it, because we broke all these rules and we still ended up with a ton of money at the end of the day, and this incredible scale, this incredible case study of what can happen when you have a unicorn product mixed with a really good ad strategy. Alright guys, what a video. Like I said, lots of lessons come from scaling a store to 7 figures in such a fast time frame, so many mistakes that were made, so many great things that I took away from this store. Like I said, this was the second store that I took to 7 figures, and honestly the second store that I scaled to any major numbers, 10, 20K a day at all. So definitely took away some great lessons. I hope it was super valuable for you as well. And like I said, if you're somebody who currently has a winning product and you're doing 200 to 1,000 bucks a day in sales, and you want me to personally jump into your account and help you scale, send me a message on Instagram, send me over your numbers, and I'll see what I can do. Maybe we can work together one-on-one on taking it to the next level. But if this video is valuable, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to help the YouTube algorithm push this to more people. I love sharing my stories like this. I've experienced a lot of, unique situations like this where I was just able to make a bunch of money and get some amazing results. So I will be making more videos about this, but that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I love you all. This is Noah Brewer, and I'm out. Peace.